Are we living in a new gilded age in America? Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, maybe you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, maybe even click that little bell that will notify you when I post something new. So a little while ago, I was struck by an article in Vanity Fair in which a one-percenter was quoted about the season in the Hamptons. And his quote was, "There's so much money now, it's nauseating." And of course, I'll include a link to all the articles I cite down below. And indeed, the amount of wealth in America now is nauseating. Another example of that was a news item that I saw in the New York Times today. This item is high-end design comes to the fish tank, talking about people spending as much as $750,000 on a fish tank. I mean, who in the world needs a $750,000 fish tank? Now, I've done videos before on the fact that we now have tons of evidence of the fact that this whole trickle-down economics doesn't work. Reaganomics does not produce wealth for everyone. It produces wealth for the very small minority. I'll include a link to the video up there that I talk about that in. I mean, $750,000 being spent on one aquarium could easily be spread among 100 people, for example, at $7,500 a pop. And it's given to people who are working class families or the poor. They'll spend it on things like food and transportation and housing. These are things that will actually make a difference in people's lives, and then will also spread money throughout the economy, something that having a luxury home for fish you're imprisoning isn't going to accomplish. In fact, I would argue that one of the greatest triumphs politically has been this idea that the very wealthy have somehow been able to convince average people that they should vote with them rather than with their own interests. I mean, here's another news item where the banks are outraged, if you can believe this, outraged over the Biden administration's desire to get more information about people who are depositing in the banks. Why do they want to know this? They want to know who the super wealthy are who are essentially hiding money in some of these banks. I mean, the Pandora Papers have shown that the United States is not some high-tax jurisdiction that the wealthy are fleeing from. Instead, it turns out we're the low-tax jurisdiction that people can hide money in. People aren't moving their money to the Cayman Islands to hide it. They're moving it to South Dakota. And you have to ask yourself, how much of that $360 billion that's being hidden in South Dakota, according to these papers, is actually benefiting almost anyone in South Dakota? No, the truth is that inequality in America is now higher than it's been at any point, perhaps ever, even more so than in the 1920s, the Roaring Twenties, or the Gilded Age in the 1890s. The super rich literally are living in a different world from the rest of us, and that's why, even though they know Trump is crazy, they're willing to support him, because they don't much care what happens to the United States. Worst case scenario, they'll move somewhere else. I really hope it's about time most Americans realize that our interests are with each other and not with the super wealthy. The super wealthy have done a bang-up job looking out for their own interests in Congress with their lobbyists and with their PR efforts. I mean, consider the fact that the banks are lobbying these disclosure regulations as somehow hurting, get this, black people. I don't see how they make the connection. But that's the kind of bait and switch that the super wealthy in America have engaged in their effort to essentially turn people against their own interests. We as Democrats need to emphasize the fact that people's own personal financial interests are best looked out by Democrats and by progressive policies. We need to reverse the attack upon unions, because although unions have certainly had their problems in the past, they've also been one of the great sources of progressive energy across this country in the past. It's time for us to stop thinking that we can somehow water down our message to try to attract Republicans, because the truth of the matter is, the ones who vote on social issues don't care what we do on economic issues, and the ones who vote on economic issues just want to take more and more and more to the point where there's nothing going to be left. No, instead what Democrats need to focus in on are the pocketbook issues that matter to the vast majority of the people, and on those issues, people overwhelmingly support the Democrats. In fact, I would argue that's the only chance we as Democrats stand in the future. Well, if you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to see your comments down below. And if you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, that'd be a huge help. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.